we give to the fire events, what information we provide them. And then lastly, a smaller document called what out of hours is always an issue for us. If we have a problem out of hours, what do we expect the people attending out of hours to do? And I'll touch upon those documents just briefly. That's what they look like. So there's the university plan, the Medway plan, and then the 4 sort of subservient plans specific to Medway, which feed into my excellent plan. So the first one. It's very much a strategic document as it stands. It doesn't really tell you what to do. It sort of sets out the parameters of the individual campus plans. You can pick up the headline points there. Again, I don't think I need to read everything to you as on the screen, but I've highlighted some salient points which I think are pertinent. So, as it says, it gives a framework. So it's setting the framework for the other plan. If you need the 3 plans that sit underneath it to both have some similarities, even though they might be different in their content, the framework of those plans needs to be the same. Again, read this again at your leisure. But the objectives, it says there's safety and protection, identifying implementation of business continuity requirements, security resistance. They're all sort of common words you see in most of them actually, but please read that again at your leisure. Strategic initiatives, as I say. Now the Medway Assembly plan, this is one I've probably had, I've had no bearing in the first one, that's set by the course, I suppose, the course of government. But I've got more of an input on this one here. These are our objectives, and this one is going to be more fleshed out with real information, pertinent to my campus. So, again, safety and protection, resiliency and infrastructure. It links back to saying, yes, we're going to do it, and this is how we do it. Effective communication, and again, review procedure, ensure continued viability. But I'll touch on that in a minute, because I'll tell you, I'll come to the end of this section, we're actually changing all this. So this is, again, the continuum cycle of when you do your review, you don't just stop, you keep reviewing and making sure what you're doing is pertinent. Of course, the other thing I should mention, you change what you do. The fact you've done a plan, you might stop teaching something, teach something else, or stop making Mars bars and make sweeties. And whatever your business is, your plan has to adapt to suit the change in your business, and that's one of the reasons for this continual assessment. That's just an example here of an incident plan by, within my campus, as in every other campus, you have a number of schools and offices. Each school and office, this is an example of the School of Science, they've detailed here their Dean of School. I've taken out personal details because I can't show you them. These are key people up here, so in the event of an incident, I can contact the Dean, the lab manager, the main office manager, chief technician. They've also identified here their key locations, what specialist equipment, how it affects personnel. So this is in our incident plan. So when we have an event, we've lost something, we can look at this and understand what, without actually having to ask them, they've already pre-told us what are the functions, what are the services in the area that they are no longer got, but we've got to try and consider they need for them to be able to continue operating. I think that's just another example, but I'll zoom in so you can see it. So as you see here, we've picked up a location, linked building, which holds chemical labs. These are the specialist equipment they've got within them, and the people that might be affected. It's just a zoomed in version of another page of what I just showed in the previous slide. Now you imagine we've got multiple schools, multiple offices, and they've all got their own individual requirements. So these are just a couple of examples of something that, that thick. Again, within the Medway Incident Plan, we've done an impact assessment. So we're looking at certain areas, just a geographical area, ground floor of the building, who's the primary users, what they use, and then in assessing the impact, how long before their business could be unduly affected. So this is informed by the users, the maximum time an area can be out of action before it's unduly affected. So they give themselves a couple of weeks here, a couple of days. Obviously, it's a very high impacting event would happen here, but they would be adversely affected very quickly, less so on some of these other areas here. And what they do to mitigate it, what the specialist services within this area is, who will be affected, and any costs that might be associated to those areas. So all this is basically a dump of information that would be needed if we lost these resources, so we're well informed as to what we need to give them to let them to continue, and at what speed. Is that clear? I can imagine that not being clear. Has anyone got any questions on that?
Would that matrix be used to go on to renew your strategy, which you're going to do? You said you're going to change the strategy.
Well, yeah, I've added an extra slide on that. I'll come to that in a minute. But yes, you're right. Yes. Now, we've been asked to, when is an incident, how do you categorise an incident? Because a small bin fire or a building burned down, they're different levels of categorisation, aren't they? So that's one thing we've got to consider. So, and depending on the categorisation is how you elevate it up the business continuity plan, who gets involved. Obviously the more senior stuff goes to the very top, the Vice Chancellor and his management team. But a more local incident might be measured or managed on a local level, and we keep them informed of what we're up to here. So just an example here, well it's not an example, it's what it states. A local incident causes limited disruption of services, does not constitute a risk to our reputation or present legal ramifications. So they are dealt with the campus emergency plan. So this is extracted from the first document, the university's business continuity plan. So basically saying, it's small, you deal with it, get with it. The next level up would be a level 2 minor incident, causes evacuation and isolation of parts of the building and may constitute potential risk to the university's reputation or have legal ramifications. There's a bit more detail in there now. It tells you who would, what extra resources, what management level would then start getting involved. And then, as you can imagine, the last one is the top of the tree. And a level 3 major incident causes significant disruption and potential disaster in university operations, its reputation, its staff and students. I'm thinking death there, potential death, significant disruption, big loss of the whole building. So that's the sort of thing you might imagine being there. And again, there's the reaction below, the individuals who would be reporting into it and who would be involved in the management of that situation. However, going back to what you were just saying down there, forget all that, it's just about to change. What we've done, well don't forget it because it's valid, but this actually links back to my continual cycle. As part of that continual cycle, we delivered, that was our process of how we would manage an event. But we had a special consultant, German consultant, you can link to them and find out about them if you wish, of come in and review what we've got. And I think they're probably right actually. What they've perceived is there is a distinct difference between disaster recovery and business continuity. And I will get an answer out this one. Can someone tell me what they think the difference is between disaster recovery and business continuity?
Time,
Yeah. Well, I would say that disaster recovery is the first line response. It's the first, you've had a disaster and you've got to recover from it. You've got to save lives, you've got to put the fire out, whatever it might be. But business continuity is the second phase, isn't it? It's the bit afterwards. You want to make sure, the most important thing is ourselves, isn't it? It's the individual's life. Getting the event under control, putting the fire out, whatever it might be. But then you think, actually, in fact, we've got to keep running the business. That's the business continuity, the continuation of your business. So that's definitely a second phase. And what they've perceived is the way we presented our information in our existing plans. And I said the schools give us all this list of the things they need after a couple of weeks, their impact assessments. Well, impact assessment is certainly part of the business continuity. It's not part of disaster recovery. It doesn't really matter in terms of disaster recovery. So what we're going to do now is actually separate our documents into 2 phases. There will be a definite disaster recovery and business continuity, so basically 2 sections, or 2 different documents. Does that make sense? Well, I can understand why they've done it, because I'm nominated for my campus to be one of the leaders in the event of an incident, being the Pro-Vice Chancellor down there. And basically when the ship's going down, you really are, you've got your heckles up, you're panicking, because it's human nature to be in a disastrous situation to panic. And the last thing you want is a guidance document that size. You need something super simple, something nice and easy. a user guide that you can just, it almost takes you through steps. You just have to follow simple steps, and what they're proposing will be that. And I'd like to be able to show you it, but at the moment it's still in draft. It's what I can show you with you is the existing documentation. This new one hasn't been formalised yet, but I think it's the right way to go. And so it does go back to my point of continued development. If you think it's right, keep checking it, and you think you always make it better. So that's what we're trying to do now. That's across the whole university, by the way, not just Midway. Right, another question. I'm looking for examples of scenarios where business continuity plans are likely to be invoked by the universities. We've given you their levels of severity. I've also described the fact that we're actually going to separate disaster recovery from business continuity. But when do you think we might start thinking about it? I've spoken with a few of them, actually. So I'm looking at you to give me answers. I don't need to give you particularly, but
the recent filming took part the other day, and all the tents and all that up there.
well, that has potential. But yes, I take the point. I'm thinking that wasn't actually disaster, but you're right. The amount of what they're doing there could create a situation that would invoke a situation like this.
The question I was going to ask you before was about disaster. It's the efficiency of the actual running of the business, like the university. How many people will come in? Are you feeling like all the rooms? Have you got enough students to cover 3 campuses?
How do you mean? Sorry, I'm not understanding your point.
Like you said, the disaster, right? And
Yeah.
the question we got up here with in the last before was having enough students to actually run the university. So,
Yeah. Well, you asked why I mentioned that.
no, that's what disaster would be. Like.
Yeah, it's financial. That's a business issue, isn't it? Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, our plan is predominantly around life safety type matters, but it is a clear. That's a business risk, isn't it?
Yeah.
Having enough income, basically, to be able to continue,
Yeah.
because we need our students to pay for everything. So, anyone has any more guesses on that?
The building catches fire.
Yeah, good one. It's the first one, isn't it? Thank you. Yeah. Flood, famine, they're the ones that normally people come up with. Fire, flood, natural disaster and terrorism. Yeah. I mean, terrorism, yeah, we've got to face it. It's a modern world. That's where we're living now. That is a risk to us. Natural disaster, well, the main one, particularly for this campus and Medway, is flooding, actually, because we're very low to rivers, major rivers. And fire, as you just mentioned. But there's a bunch more. That's why you've got to think bigger picture. I mean, I put fire because we've mentioned it already, but asbestos is a huge one. There's asbestos in most buildings. If we have an asbestos release, if we break an asbestos and contaminate the room, that's a fairly significant problem. And I would suggest that would definitely go into category 2. If bust through the walls, asbestos, we will contaminate it. That's a serious matter. No one ever thinks of that one, but it is one. And it's probably, in terms of likelihood, if you look at like fire, how many fires do you get? Not many. How many floods do you get? Very few. How many terrorism attacks do you get? Hardly any. But they're the ones on our consciousness, aren't they? The reality is, asbestos is far more likely than any of them, in my opinion. Medical emergencies. Multiple accident outbreak unit that you mentioned, didn't you, before, about diseases, so that's covered underneath there. Civil unrest, it's been seen. We've had riots in London, a few times in the last 10, 15 years. It is an issue. Another one that no one comes up with. What about the utilities issues we've got about the gas supply? Russia are threatening to put out Ukraine only today. They're threatening to cut the Ukraine off. What happens if we have no gas? No heating out. No, we're not legally allowed to operate if we can't offer a safe and suitable conditions. We haven't actually lost any buildings at all, but we lose our gas or our electricity supply. It's still business consumed. How do we continue to function without our major utilities? Gas leaks an obvious one, but no gas. Again, electric supply, I mentioned that. The other one, of course, is our IT systems. I'm using one right now. We use them all the time. You're all using your Wi-Fi tablets, laptops, as we speak, probably. Now, if you take off our teaching tools, how do we deliver our lectures? Did this give you a slightly different slant on it? It's not the obvious things, but in fact, we've got virus there, hacking, that's rising significantly now. Our IT department puts significant time and effort into stopping the amount of spam and virus attacks that come onto this and loads of other institutions. Again, we've physically lost nothing, but we've lost a big function. Yeah. There's a few more there, as you see, but I hope that gives you a bigger picture of the things you might not necessarily think about. I think why did I put this down? I think this is just a few more really, slightly lower severity. When I was talking before, I was talking about like a nationwide loss of gas, etc. So it's obviously a more local issue. Effective life safety systems. We are obliged to have fire detection. There'll be something here somewhere. If we can't have this operation, we're not allowed to occupy the buildings. Again, it's a minor thing, and the likelihood of that happening is a lot more than some of the other major ones that we would think about. Scientific experiments, probably more related to my campus, but Medway is the Faculty of Engineering and Science. We have a lot of laboratories and we do a lot of experimentation, both in terms of teaching and research. And this happened recently. We had an explosion, chemical explosion in one of our fume hoods. It blew out the fume hood, shattered sulfuric acid all across the lab. Fortunately, no one was injured, but it happened. That really did happen a few months ago. Incidents outside of our control. Again, we're thinking about us, but again, relating to Medway, we do have other neighbours here. My next door neighbour is the Army. All across one boundary, I've got the Royal School of Military Engineering. They may have an issue that has got nothing to do with me whatsoever, but it will affect my campus. They may have an incident and the police put 2 mile exclusion zone down. So in one fell swoop, nothing's gone on my campus at all. But I've got to have to apply business continuity and disaster recovery, but with nothing, it hasn't affected us other than the fact we can't occupy. How do you run a university with nothing to actually occupy to teach? You shut down. Again, I've mentioned asbestos previously. Legionella is another one. Probably less likely than asbestos, but if you manage to have a good LA, LA is the water regulations. If you manage the water systems to LA, you should be okay. But if you have evaporative cooling towers, which a lot of places in London do, significant risk of Legionella if you don't manage them properly. So there's another example. The other one, of course, is we don't have a flatline year. Thinking about us as a university, we have peaks and troughs, we have terms, don't we? So what is applicable at one point in the year isn't necessarily applicable the other time. We have key periods of the year. For instance, exams. A number of you, or most of you, will have exams shortly, I would suggest. So that's a critical time for the business. We have important external visitors or events. Teaching, perhaps slightly less. I've put them there, exams critical, important events critical. Teaching, perhaps less, that's normal criticality. And summer holidays, when you're all not here, you could actually then lower it down again. So when I put weddings, we do host weddings at Medway. And I class them as normal, but brides think they're critical, obviously, because they're getting married. But what I'm trying to show you, there's a wave there of criticality. It isn't just applicable to a flat line. Pleased to know, we're nearly at the end. So there's another question for you there. I'm a facilities manager. I'm talking about it from a facilities perspective, but in the organisation, is business continuity / disaster recovery a facilities management own function? I can do an easy way of doing this. Hands up for yes. Few. So on the basis of that, everyone else is a no. Is that correct? Yeah. Well, I agree. It's just a point to discuss really. You can argue you're right as well, and I agree with you. But I sort of generally say no. Because facilities management supports an organisation's core business. I mean, this happens. Our core business is teaching. We teach and research. So our job is to provide the environment in which they are to do it. We can probably lead on the disaster recovery element, but the business continuity absolutely has to be by the users, you know, the people who occupy the buildings. If we weren't a university, we would be, let's say we're Dagenham Ford Motor Plant, you know, they make Ford cars or whatever they make over there, rather than teach students. Now, their facilities department won't know how to make cars as much as I don't know how to teach people, as you can see, I'm not very good at it. But that's why the organisation or the various factors that build up the core business need to feed into disaster recovery plans. We have no clue what they need really, we can guess, but that's not the objective. So I say that as I say there, we play a significant role in the recovery of the physical structure, but it's down to the offices and the faculties to actually fully engage, and it's a plan owned by everyone and informed by everyone. So, a business continuity plan should be flexible and simple to use, providing the person who's using it with correct and up-to-date, valid business information, informed information, to assist with the classification and the management of the event, communication with stakeholders and inform which services infrastructure to recover to an agreed sequence. I can't believe that I wrote that, which I think is a fairly good summary of what I think they should be. I should quote that, it's mine. It took me to writing the presentation to come up with that. Well, I think that's a fair, good snapshot, in my opinion, of what I consider it to be. You may argue differently, but that's what I think. Okay, anything more on business continuity? Yes, young lady at the back.
Could you just give the guys 5 minutes on, you have an equivalent project, Laura has Dreadnought rehabilitation, you have an equivalent project, and just in a couple of sentences, the potential for that project may be to disrupt business. So just a couple of minutes on what the project is and in what respect it might just disrupt business continuity.
Okay. You've met Laura, she spoke about Dreadful, I assume. I've got a mini project, that's a big juicy one, mine's not quite so big, but we have the last, there we go. This building here is the last unrefurbished, was derelict building on campus. It's there's two buildings. There's a bowling alley, what used to be a Skittles alley there, and a swimming pool, Edwardian swimming pool. Still is a swimming pool, and that is going to be converted to a student centre. We have student offices in Pilkington building, but through the NSS survey that we filled, student satisfaction, we want to give the student union their own dedicated home to use as they want. So, as in the Drillborn Pilkington building, University of Medway, a joint venture agreement, us and University of Kent have both committed 50% of the funding. It's a £4.3 million budget, we've got to develop it. And that's a live project right now. We're currently, in fact, we go for planning tomorrow. I've left the planning design team meeting to come to this, I'll come straight from it. We go for planning tomorrow. The detailed design is being completed over the next couple of weeks, subject to being signed off at that relevant RRBA stage by the campus management board. And then we'll go through full prepare and intend documentation, go out to tender this spring, start on site this summer, and we'll be finished next summer. So that's the job in a nutshell. But how it affects the operation of the campus? Well, it is co-locating a lot of things that are currently disparate. They're all over the place. We've got a bar, a shop somewhere else, Angelica building, we've got the student union offices, and we're actually creating space that doesn't exist. So we're going to have to reconfigure our business continuity plans to figure out how that building is going to be used. We're notionally going to give the keys to the student union so they can do sort of what they wanted it. So students, being students, as you are all students, like having fun, we've got to think about what they want to be doing in there. We might have to put some form of restrictions on what we allow them to do, but not that we want to, but we'll thrash it out with the student union. It also takes a centre of focus to the far end of campus, because sort of the majority of the campus, not for my part, is up here. But bearing in mind the drill was very popular, we're now going to put a fairly good-sized social space, cafe, bar, nightclub, So we're going to be encouraging large quantities or large number of people down there, perhaps late at night, selling alcohol, everything related to that. So that is something we'll have to consider as part of our risk assessment for business continuity. Does that answer your question?
Answered my question. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
I got a question.
Please go.
Your impact register kind of thing, is that just a detailed risk register?
No. Well, sort of.
Because
Yeah,
can't you just use
it's
the risk?
identifying key areas or key rooms or key bits of equipment to the occupiers that they need or how long they can do without it before it adversely affects their business. So if that's, no, I said before, when I said the answer is no, it's informed by them. That's the bit informed by them. I have no bearing on what they say on that. They say this is what we need. You know, in the event of the loss of our space, we need 4 classrooms, 5 offices, and a certain bit of specialist equipment. I don't know what that might be, it will be detailed in there.
Yeah. See, I think the answer is partially yes when you said no, because
Yeah, I said you can argue it both ways.
yeah, because ideally all of you kind of contribute to the business continuity,
Yeah, right.
and you without it's like running a building without facilities management.
Well, if you remember, my question was, is it FM's? I said no, I didn't say no, it's not ours.
Yeah.
I said it's everyone. The answer is, no, it's not FM's, it's everyone's. It's
Yeah.
us and everyone else.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, no, fair point. I see why you picked it up, but if I didn't read verbatim what I've written down, but if you see there, I do go and
Yeah.
sort of explain that in the subtext underneath there. I say no.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Mm.
If I can find it, I hope I did that. So we go past it there. All sectors and divisions of the organisation contribute. All are required to play an active role in delivering a successful business continuity plan. Therefore, however, like to play a significant role in the recovery of the physical infrastructure in the event of an incident. The factors in office have an equal important function to provide good information to the BCP and fully participate in its implementation. So, yeah, is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. Right. Multiple acronyms there. Is this relevant, Christy? Okay. Right, computer-aided facilities management, building information modelling and BMS in the context of business continuity. Doesn't trip off the tongue the slightest, does it? But there you go. So that's, you know, I've just explained what they are. I assume, does everyone know what they are?
Isn't the first one and the last one the same thing?
You could do, yeah. Yeah, I'd say BMS is specifically something.
Building management.
Building management system, you know, that's sensors, controllers, monitoring the performance of
Trend
the plant, trend being one of the biggest ones, absolutely. And BMS can sort of fall under computer-aided facilities management as part of it, but a CAFAM system would be, it could be, is vast. That could be inquiry management, that could be space management, it could be bookings, it could be planned maintenance, reactive maintenance, property information. Most of them are modular systems you can buy, and you just bolt on bits, depending on what your organisation is. But CAFAM is pretty huge.
So CAFAM, you'd be using like something like CAFAM for bookings of, say, like new students, clearance.
Yeah, you could do
at
that.
the time of the year when people are trying to join the university.
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about. I think last time. Don't think it's up there. Wouldn't that no new students?
That's right, yeah. Oh, funny enough, when they do the registration, good point actually, there is a disaster recovery, there's a fallback option where they do the registration in, I can't think where it is now, one of the campuses. There's actually, we have a secondary registration team set up, all ready to go in case that one falls over. You know, for instance, if there's a local power cut, the registration stuff. We've got things like generator backup, we've got UPS support in certain areas, but we have Medway is ready to host registration as part of our business. Well, it's a risk assessment, not business continuity. It's a part of the risk assessment is we have a secondary option to do registration because that would be, you're right, that would be absolutely disastrous for us. And building information modelling, I assume is part of your. I think you have a lecture after this. You said, yeah. So if you don't know, you'll find out very shortly. CAFAM at University of Greenwich, we've got two systems, one called Quantark, one called Avery Hill Campus, which is currently hosting our help desk system for that campus, which is very shortly to be rolled out to do the help desk system across the whole university. It's all three campuses. At Medway, we've got a system called Shire, which is actually used on this campus and Medway as well. We use those currently for, no, I mentioned they're modular, you can expand with these modules to create a monolith if you wish to, but we use them for our help desk for reactive and planned maintenance currently. BIM, not currently used on the University of Greenwich Estate. We have no BIM modelling or information or processes as it stands, which is a bit of a disappointment. Stockwell Street came very close to being BIM, but it isn't. It's BIM-esque, it's BIM-light. There's a system called Eco Documents that they employed, which is a kind of a step up to BIM, for want of a better expression. It should allow for the sharing of information and the building of what would be the O&M, the physical, it's not physical at all actually, it's completely not physical, is it? It's all electronic information. But we didn't do it. And why do you think, well, any idea why we didn't BIM up when we had in the £76 million building? I've got my opinions on it, but I don't know if anybody has any opinions on it.
Oh, it's expensive, you didn't need to.
Yeah, yes and yes. Probably. It's my opinion, I'm not that great, but I just don't think we're ready for it yet. I don't think, it's not just us as a client and end user, but I don't think anyone else is ready for it. Because, well, I don't know if I should talk about this if you're about to be lectured about it. BIM is great in theory, and will be great, but it needs to be driven through and built into everyone's DNA. And the government are the ones doing it. There's, again, someone knows a lot more about this will probably tell you that there's, the government will very shortly insist on every government project over a certain value size will be done under BIM. So all the large, the really big contractors that are after the really juicy government contracts will have no choice. They have their arms pushed up the back, you're going to go BIM. And once they do it, it will start trickling down. From the really large players, it will start coming down to the intermediates. People move and leave around and take the skills with them. People invest in the software particularly, and the knowledge, the training of their staff. And this will gradually start coming down to the smaller type projects. I know £76 million is not a small project, but in terms of £1 billion cross-rail type projects, multiple £1 billion, it is. So I just think we were just a bit too early, to be honest. I think that was it. I don't think we've got this knowledge, or to any of our partners, all our architects, our designers, our engineers, do they really have the skills to do it? And do you want to be first? Don't know.
I think that in terms of BIM, I think it's still like in its infancy.
Yeah,
I don't think it's like...
You summarised what I said in 5 minutes in that 2 words.
Yeah. Because it's, in one of our other lectures, Brian, he was like how BIM still misses a lot of things. Like it will miss out, like say, skirting and ironmongery and stuff like that. And that will cost a lot on a £76 million project. It will all add up. And if it's not done, you get hit with your claims and you're saying that you're not finished, or you would get a load of variations.
Yeah. I mean, I think BIM's still work in progress. It's going to happen, and it's great. And I'd love to have a full BIM package as a facilities manager, having this addressable, operational set of information. I can remodel, if I want to do a fit out or a change or take out a partition, I can model it on the BIM information. I can even work out how much it costs for me. I can work out what the U value changes would be if I change a partition or a cladding system. It's fantastic, potentially.
The thing is,
but I need to be blooming clever to know how to use it.
Yeah, I think BIM is only as good as you make it.
Yeah.
Because it's all dependent on the information that you put in there. And I think in terms of putting information in there, that's what people don't want to do. Because you're going to have new professionals, you're going to have BIM managers, and you're going to have other people doing stuff to do with BIM. And they're going to have to come around and teach everyone how to use it. It's a lot of time.
Well, I think if you're an architect or a design engineer bidding for a job that's BIM, you know how much time you'll assign to it in a positional sense. But then you've got to do the BIM element on. What are you judging your time on? You really haven't, at the moment, I can see, you're just a guest, aren't you?
Yeah.
You are an educated guest.
Yeah.
But how do you, people that don't know, the present moment. It's just new technology. It's not legislation, is it? Is it legislation, Christine? Bim? No, it's best practice, isn't it? So it will come, but that's the longest talk I've done on a slide, only a few words on it. But currently, nothing at the university. Oh yeah, I did mention this, eco documents, BIM Light. Sorry, I've talked a bit further on about this. So that's what we did, use eco documents, and it's a database of rapidly, easily searching information, which is getting towards BIM, but not really. The BMS system, friend here mentioned Trend, yeah, probably the leader in the market in the UK. Trend BMS systems, so it provides accurate HVAC control, real-time information, fault finding. All our buildings, all of our campuses are all on Trend. Not particularly high level.